there is emotional component to it. When I think of annolini, for me, it's the family trying to carve that sundae all together, making that chain. One person makes the dough, one person fills it, one person cuts it. So nothing for me will ever compare to that moment of preparing, making it perfect, arguing over who didn't close the annolini perfectly because it's popping out when you cook it in broth.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies, because the best part of any trip is what you eat. I'm Brent Peterson. This week we're in the foodie city of Parma, Italy, for the famous Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, cured meats, and some underrated wine. My guest is Lisa Bertacchini from Taste Bologna. Lisa is a foodie tour guide in her hometown of Parma, and she tells me about the strict rules regarding Parmigiano Reggiano and how to pair the cheese with food and wine. Plus, we talk about the famous Prosciutto di Parma, a local pasta, and three delicious desserts. Plus, Lisa tells me about the unusual origin of her name and breaks down a food fight between Parma and Bologna. And I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Lisa from Taste Bologna, welcome to Destination Eat Drink. Looking forward to talking to you about Parmesan cheese and great pasta and great wine from your city of Parma.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, Taste Bologna, they do tours all over Emilia-Romagna, and these cities are kind of clustered together. You can get to all of them, whether it's Modena, whether it's Parma, Bologna, even Ravenna, are all within an hour or so of each other by the train. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about Parma. What makes this a special, interesting, and vibrant foodie place to visit?
Well, first of all, I am going to be biased for the entire speech. So I will say I was born and raised in Parma. And of course, for me, giving tours in the city will always be better than any of the surrounding cities.
That's right.
Because we have the best food, the best people, the best city, but trying to be a little bit less biased. I think the experience of a tour in Parma compared to the other cities in Emilia-Romagna is definitely more intimate. The tour we designed, and when I say we, I'm talking Andrea, myself, and a team of other guides. We decided that we wanted our travelers to not just to taste our products, which of course make the city famous, but also to meet the people of Parma. Parma is a small city. We have 200,000 citizens. And for us, when you go out and try some Parmigiano or have a bowl of annolini, it's not just about the beautiful flavor, but it's about who made it and who made it that special for you that day. And so I think a tour in Parma, unlike other bigger cities where logistics make it hard, gives you a chance to feel like a person from here.
I think the size of the city is important.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a relatively medium-sized city by Portuguese standards. And I always say, if I'm going to go out for a walk, I need to plan for build in some extra time, because inevitably I'm going to run into people that I know, and we're going to stop and we're going to chat for a few minutes. And it sounds like Parma's that same kind of intimate city where you know a lot of people, and you've been there your whole life. I've only been in this city for 4 years. You've been there your whole life. You must know everybody.
It's true. We do know pretty much everyone, and we all have our favorite spots when it comes to food. Of course, I think one element is obviously the size of the city. Parma is a city where you can walk everywhere or bike everywhere, which makes it ideal for a walk or a walking food tour. And another element that makes it a bit different is that Parma doesn't have a food market. So for everyone in the city, be it a traveler or a local, it is common to go from shop to shop to pick your products. So what we do is really most likely the Saturday morning of a Parma person going out, picking breakfast first and then going for pasta and then maybe some veggies and then some cheese because that's never missing. So I do think that it really feels like a walk with friends. And I do find the markets in Modena and in Bologna incredibly beautiful, but I think there is a different feel when you can walk around the city, enjoy the views and pick your spots. And each spot is a tiny little kitchen that you can actually see. And that makes Parma unique. Yes.
Before we get started into the specifics of the food, I did want to ask you a question, Lisa, because when I saw your name pop up, I was, when we started communicating a few weeks ago, I assumed that you were Italian American, that you had moved to Parma at some point because your first name is Lisa. And in all my travels to Italy over the last 25 years, I've never met a native Italian named Lisa before. And I was surprised when I got you on this call and you are a native Parma person. Where does the name Lisa come from? What's the origin of an Italian woman being named Lisa when she's a baby?
So you're right in saying that Lisa is not the most common Italian name. You might maybe think of Chiara, Martina, Francesca as the classics, or Elisabetta and Elisa, which are very close to my name. Lisa is actually an Italian name, as much as a lot of people connect it to Germany very often. And I have been one of the lucky ones in the mid-90s that most likely got their names from an Italian song that was in the late 60s. The title was Lisa dagli occhi blu, Lisa with blue eyes. And a lot of parents from obviously my generation indeed decided to use that name. So that's the reason. Funny enough, the pronunciation is different. We spell it with an S, Lisa, and we say Lisa as if it was with a Z. So
right.
It is a little different, yes.
If you would have been born 10 years later, you might have been called Billie Jean, after the Michael Jackson song. But you got Lisa, so good. Let's start with talking about the food. Let's start with Parmesan cheese, because if people know nothing else about Parma, they've heard of Parmesan cheese. It might be the most famous export from all of Italy, and it comes from your town, from Parma. Mm-hmm. What do you like to tell people about Parmesan cheese when they come visit you?
The very first thing is it's not called Parmesan cheese. I will disappoint most of my travelers from the beginning and be very picky and very proud of our product by saying that I will always and only say Parmigiano Reggiano. And yes, you need to get your Italian ready there, but exactly like you will say Gucci and Prada or Ray-Ban, Parmigiano Reggiano deserves its recognition with its official name. Now, exactly as you said, it is one of the most the most exported product abroad. And it's also the most copied, which is why we're very specific about the naming. Parmesan could be any cheese, normally a mature cheese that can be made anywhere around the world, while Parmigiano Reggiano only and exclusively comes from the region between Parma and Bologna, which leads to the second element I will mention. We are very proud of having Parma in the name, so Parmigiano, of course, but it actually comes from a region that goes from Parma to Bologna, more or less. And therefore it belongs to the region itself, not just to the city.
So this Parmigiano Reggiano from this region of Emilia-Romagna, the specific region, mm-hmm. Is made there, the cheese is cured there and is aged there. Is the milk also from cows in the region? Is that one of the requirements?
Correct, yes. Parmigiano Reggiano is a PDO product, or in Italian DOP. That means protected designation of origin. This means that every step of the production, which goes from what the cows eat until what we eat, so it is a full cycle, needs to come from the region, which is perhaps the element that makes it definitely most unique and most special. The flavors that you get, the texture that you get, the color that you get, and the uses do depend on our land. in a way, Parmigiano Reggiano is the highest representation of a perfect combination of the right land, the right ingredient, and the right people that started transforming what was, in the Middle Age, excess of milk, that was a problem, into a very nice solution, which is Parmigiano Reggiano over the years, of course.
If you're enjoying Destination Eat Drink, take a moment to rate and review the show on your podcast app. It just takes a moment, and it helps other foodie travelers just like you find the show. And if you want to hear more of my conversation with Lisa, become a member of my Substack. Members get access to the full interview where we dive deeper into Parmigiano Reggiano, talk about some of the things to see in Parma that aren't food related, and discuss whether to have eggplant Parmesan in Parma or if it's better to skip it. Become a member of my Substack at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. You do the tours with Taste Bologna in your city of Parma. How do we experience Parmigiano Reggiano during your tour?
So we obviously have a tasting, yes, and I'm going into it in a second. But most importantly, as we walk around the city, we start to understand why Parma was the perfect location for the birth of what is today one of the most amazing cheeses in the world. I'm saying that because I don't want to spoil too much, but as we walk through the city, there are elements, even in the history, that tell us about how these started. To give you an example, we pass by a road that is called Borgo della Salina, the Salt Road. And we go into why there was salt in Parma. People go, the beach was far away. How could you age that cheese with the amount of salt you use? But actually, there was a nearby town, which is still there. It's called Salsomaggiore, that had natural springs of salty water from the ground. So in the Middle Age, we had access to salt nearby and relatively cheap, which obviously was a natural preservative that led to the production later on. So first of all, as we walk through the city, we understand a bit of the roots of the product. We obviously have a look at windows to understand how to spot the fakes and how to be able to recognize a real Parmigiano Reggiano. And then obviously we sit at a table and it's time to taste Parmigiano. Our tasting gives you a nice overview from 12 months of aging, which is the minimum, to over 60 months. Parmigiano doesn't have a maximum aging, so we could go higher, but it does become a bit strong to taste on its own when you get above 60, 65. Obviously, in the end, each palate is going to be different. But in a tasting, we normally reach 60, and our guests already feel like their palate is a bit too full at that point.
Wow. So 60 months, 5 years, that's pretty strong, Parmigiano Reggiano. For you, I mean, as you go up with this aging, it's going to become more expensive because it's more expensive for the producer. But for you personally, Lisa, what's your favorite? I mean, where's your sweet spot for aging Parmigiano Reggiano?
It depends on the use. I don't have one specific favorite. So what is always in my fridge is a 24 months, which is considered the greatest balance. It's not too creamy, so it's enjoyable and it can be grated. Of course, for example, a 12 months is hard to grate, so it's not as easy to use in the kitchen. So I will always have a 24, which can be adapted for grating or just to start a meal as an aperitivo, as we like in Italy. And then I will always have higher aging. Sometimes it can be a 36, sometimes a 40, 42, which is what I normally use for grating. So, for example, to make a bechamel for a lasagna, or sometimes if I want to make the filling of tortelli and annolini, our wonderful pasta, I find that the highest aging gives more flavor. And it's also, because it's drier, it's ideal to make pasta fillings and make them stay inside the pasta dough. So it's both a matter of texture and flavor. I will always keep at least those two to make sure I have a choice.
I had Lori from Taste Bologna on the podcast recently. She does the tours in Modena, and we talked a lot, of course, about aged balsamic vinegar. And I think one of the great tastes in the whole world is a little drop of aged balsamic on some chunk of Parmigiano Reggiano. One of my favorite things. Is this one of yours as well? Do you agree with me on this taste?
I do, yes. Preferably at 25 years old, balsamic vinegar, which is the sweetest one, on a chunk of minimum 36 month Parmigiano Reggiano. You need a strong aging with the sweetness of the balsamic to make
makes sense.
This match made in Emilia-Romagna. It's not in heaven, it's made in our region. But yes, I agree. It's not the only pairing though. I do think that, for example, honey is a great match.
Oh, yeah.
Chestnut jam, which is common in this area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
Figs are a great match as well because they're very sweet. And I have to mention Lambrusco jelly, which is a jelly made out of the Lambrusco wine.
Okay. Yeah. I've talked about Lambrusco on the podcast before. In my opinion, it's one of the great underrated wines in all of Italy. And I don't know if your guests have told, I've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't know if your guests have told you, but Lambrusco had kind of a bad reputation in the United States in the 1970s because they imported some low quality Lambrusco. There was this maker called Riuniti, and their famous ad campaign was Riuniti on ice. That's nice. Like they would serve the Lambrusco on ice, and they put it in their commercials. And so for decades, Lambrusco kind of wallowed in this low level of winemaking in the United States, at least. And then I came to Italy the first time, and I tried Lambrusco when I went to Bologna 25 years ago. I was like, oh, this is a completely different thing. This is fine wine. This is really, really good. It blew my mind. So I'm glad to hear about that. And I've never had, I have to admit, Lambrusco jelly. That has to go on my list. I got to find some Lambrusco jelly and have it with a slice of...
Come and join our tours. That might be the first chance.
That's the way to do it. You know, I mentioned the 1970s. That I grew up in the 70s. I was a little kid then. And in the U.S., I mean, my first experience with quote unquote Parmesan cheese came in this green can, grated, what they called Parmesan cheese, Kraft. The Kraft company made it, and it was called Parmesan cheese. It came in a green can, and this was all I knew as a little kid as far as Parmesan cheese goes. Have your American guests told you about this horrible Parmesan cheese that we had? I think they still sell it in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, but it is not good.
I've heard stories, yes, and I'll leave it there.
You mentioned, Lisa, a couple of times the pasta of Parma called annolini. Describe this. What kind of pasta is it? How is it served?
So when it comes to pasta in Parma, of course, you could think of any of the traditional Italian pastas, but the very Parma options are annolini and tortelli. Now, I'll focus on annolini because to me, it is the family comfort food. It's on our table for Christmas Day, for Easter Day, and it's on our table on the tour in winter. We normally switch in summer when the broth gets a bit too hot to enjoy in hot, summery Parma. But annolini are pasta. The pasta dough is obviously a mix of semolina, water, and eggs. So the dough is what you could normally recognize as pasta. But the unique part is the filling. The filling is slow-cooked beef. We slow-cook the beef with carrots, celery, onion, and tomato until it melts. It normally takes a good 12 to 14 hours. The meat melts, and then we add breadcrumbs and good Parmigiano Reggiano, minimum 30 months. All of that turns into almost a paste. We make little balls out of it, and we put them inside pasta, which is then cut like a little medallion, basically. That little medallion filled with this beautiful, rich filling goes in broth. So then it's going to be floating in broth. I specify floating because the way we call annolini in our dialect is galleggiant, which is the floaties. Because when they float, It's when they're ready. So they
Oh,
need to
nice.
float in your bowl, and that's the moment.
Oh, that's awesome. So I've never had annolini before. I've had tortellini and brodo, but it sounds. And people can't see this. You're giving me the thumbs down. I was going to say, can we compare them at all? I'm going to guess what your answer is, but you tell me, Lisa. This is going to be good. I'm going to enjoy this.
It's, as you can imagine, every one of us is very proud of their unique pasta from their city, and we do have our preferences. To me, annolini are way better because when you try a tortellino, the pasta is thinner and the filling is smaller because of the shape of the tortellino. So I do find the annolini much stronger, meatier, cheesier. They warm you up in a way that I simply cannot feel when I try the beautiful, don't get me wrong, tortellini from Modena and Bologna. Obviously, again, there is emotional component to it. When I think of annolini, for me, it's the family trying to carve that sundae all together, making that chain. One person makes the dough, one person fills it, one person cuts it. So nothing for me will ever compare to that moment of preparing, making it perfect, arguing over who didn't close the annolini perfectly because it's popping out when you cook it in broth, or arguing who puts more or less filling to try and find which one belongs to whom. So there is that. There is the family, the person part that I was mentioning before that will always make cannellini win. But it is true that they have objectively more filling as well.
Okay. All right. I love these, what I call food fights, like comparing and people saying, no, mine is better. No, mine is better. And I like the way you're describing it, Lisa. It's not only between Parma and Bologna, but it's also within the family itself. Like yeah. the cousin is telling the aunt that, no, you didn't do it right, or you didn't crimp the pasta properly. It blew up in the broth.
And I'll tell you more. On the tour, you experience it, because when we go and try annolini, we get into a kitchen, which is very small, probably the size of a hotel room, if that, where Enrico, our pasta master, and his son, or normally his son if he's around, or his mom that works in the same shop, are making annolini in front of us. And you see them arguing all the time. You didn't cut it well. You didn't put enough cheese. Oh, the cheese on top is not spread correctly. So you do feel that part of the product when you are on the tour. And I do think that's something that is today, when tours are becoming very often more with bigger groups or more commercial, that's something that you lack. In Parma, you can still do it. And yes, we do have to squeeze in the kitchen sometimes. It's true, because the kitchen is live. There is everything going on. But you do get to experience the personality of the products as well, not just the flavor.
My girlfriend is Italian American. Her grandfather came over from Campania 100 some years ago. And the phrase we always use when we see this is, it's up for discussion, which means everyone's going to put in their 2 cents for how to do it, and who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong, and who's abiding by the rules and who's breaking the rules. And to me, this is part of the fun of going to Italy, and part of the fun of going on a food tour is that you get to see this firsthand and up close.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So we talked about Lambrusco a little bit, but are there any other kinds of wines that we'd have with our annolini, or what would we have with it?
With annolini, yes, it would be a glass of Lambrusco, nice and sparkling, to the point that I'll admit we don't do that on the tour, mainly because of logistics, but in the past, it was common to serve annolini in a bowl, so you could add Lambrusco to the broth.
Oh, cool.
It would actually be part of the meal. That's how I've always seen my grandfather eating annolini, for example, always with Lambrusco. And yes, it is the perfect match. It's because the annolini are very rich in flavor. They're not the lightest meal. And Lambrusco, with its fresh grapey flavor and the little sparkles does help you digest and make space for more. So it is the ideal pairing. In Parma, the other wine that we normally mention is Malvasia, which is instead a white, also with a thin light bubble. It is more of a summery, flowery wine. So you feel the grape less and you feel the flower a little bit more. But that is normally served as an aperitivo, so as a starter mainly, but not with meat, because then it's too light.
Emilia Romagna is also known for its cured meats. Tell me about Prosciutto di Parma.
So, yeah, Prosciutto di Parma is the other product that made Parma famous all around the world. Again, it's a matter of numbers. To give you an idea, we make approximately 8 million legs of Prosciutto di Parma a year. So the numbers are huge. Yes.
Wow.
But I'll have to specify the name Prosciutto di Parma obviously refers to the region, but the production is in a specific town in the province of Parma, which is called Langhirano. And this is because the area, which is the very first hills of Parma, as the ideal wind and dry temperature to age and dry those prosciutto for the aging time. Obviously, today, air conditioning can help, but imagine in the past when you had to dry that big leg outside, you needed an area that was not humid. So the production is actually in the south of Parma, in this little town called Langhirano, which is part of the city. Now, once again, prosciutto is another PDO product, so only produced there, only natural ingredients, the meat itself and the salt, and then time and knowledge, which is what we need to reach perfection. Time is an ingredient in our region. It's not just a procedure. The idea of waiting to reach perfection is part of who we are and of our product. And that applies to prosciutto. The minimum aging is 14 months. But I'll be honest with you, the 14 months prosciutto is what we mainly use to cook in sauces, for instance. But what we want to enjoy on its own and what we enjoy on the tour is normally at least 26 months, preferably 30. That's because at that point it becomes, the texture is perfect, so it loses a bit of its humidity. At the same time, the flavor is more concentrated. The color becomes that strong red that we like on bread or on torta fritta. And it just is also easier to digest. So there is also a health aspect, if you wish.
There's lots more food and travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a new story about some little-known statues carved by a teenage Michelangelo, well before he became famous. They're incredible, and you can read about them and see the pictures at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I also have a brand new food and travel guide to Bologna available at buymeacoffee.com. Bologna is one of the great foodie cities of the world where you can get ragu alla bolognese, tortellini and brodo, a criminally underrated wine, and so much more. Find out about all those and so many more things, plus where to eat and drink in this great city by downloading your copy of the Bologna Food and Travel Guide at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. I also posted a brand new video from the hidden gem Lisbon neighborhood of Lapa. There's a craft beer pub in an 18th century tunnel, some of the best Italian food in Portugal, and an amazing brunch spot. Plus, the Queen's Church with incredible rooftop views. Watch that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or go to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. Okay, Lisa, we've had our pasta, we've had our cheese, we've had our prosciutto di Parma, we've had our wine, we've had our lambrusco. What's for dessert?
Okay, now most people don't know desserts from Parma, and it's true. Parma is not the biggest city when it comes to desserts in Italy. Most people that think of Italian desserts think of desserts from the south. So they think of cannoli, they think of sometimes baba, they think of... This is also because of the immigration of Italians all around the world that was mainly from the south, and so those desserts were exported. But Parma has its own gems, and I'll mention 3, actually. The first one, which goes with your coffee when you don't want to commit to a bigger cake, so something easy and quick, is a cannoncino, which is our own version of a cannolo. It doesn't belong to Parma only, I'll be honest, but it's very common to see it around the city. It's basically, it has the shape of a cannolo, but it's not fried. It's actually baked. So it's puffed pastry that is baked and filled with vanilla custard or eggnog for those that need a bit of a push in the morning or after a meal.
Nice. I like
it.
But
that is it's a tiny little something that will go with your coffee. When instead you feel more like a dessert, or you have a big event in Parma, be it an anniversary, a birthday, so you want the real Parma cake, 2 options. Option number 1, torta ungherese, or Hungarian cake, made by the one and only Pasticceria Pagani, which is the oldest pastry shop in town, which we visit on the tour, as you can imagine. They are the ones that invented this cake, actually 3 generations ago. It was launched at the Parma Opera House when an Hungarian composer came to town. It became very successful, and it's now one of the symbols of Parma. It's 5 layers of sponge cake, butter and chocolate cream in the middle, 95% cocoa on top. So it is for chocolate lovers.
Decadent. I like it.
Yes, definitely a decadent.
And the Hungarians know how to make their cakes, right? So this was a great idea.
It is, the name Hungarian is because it is actually inspired by the dobos cake, which is a traditional Hungarian cake. But the Pagani family found that recipe too sweet for Parma flavors. So they changed what was whipped cream and caramel to buttercream and chocolate to make a Parma version of it. They only stole the name from Hungary.
Perfect.
Now, the last one, I could go on forever, but I know that we need to think of the best ones. And the one that you're going to see in every window of pastry shops in Parma is torta della duchessa, or Duchess cake. The Duchess being Marie-Louise, Napoleon's second wife, who was reigning in Parma for 40 years. Parma was French for a very long time before the unification of Italy. And that cake, which as far as we know was invented by a chef in Marie-Louise's court, has 3 layers, not 5 in this case, 3 layers of short-crust pastry. In the middle, again, chocolate and buttercream, zabaioni to give a bit of a kick. And on top, traditionally, candied cherries, 1 per person.
Okay. I like it. I don't know how I would choose, Lisa. I think maybe I'll have 1 of each.
Yeah, I would do that just in case.
Just in case, right. Lisa Bertacchini from Taste Bologna, thank you so much for waving the flag for Parma, a place in Emilia-Romagna that everyone should visit, and everyone should sign up for the food tour with you at Taste Bologna. They can do that at tastebologna.net. It's been a delight talking to you. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge about your great city. And I love your enthusiasm about Parma. Makes me want to come back to Emilia-Romagna and take the food tour with you. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, it was my pleasure. And I look forward to taking you around the city.
Okay, there you go. What a great conversation with Lisa. Her food tours sound amazing. Book your tour at tastebologna.net. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in South America for a surprising wine region that creates amazing Syrah, Riesling, and much more. Subscribe to Destination Eat Drink so you don't miss that. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.